Hello everyone. So thanks for joining today's webinar where we'll be looking at the 21-22 graduate trends and challenges we are seeing. Today you've got myself, David Clarkson. I'm the marketing manager with Testgrid, and also Josie Miller.
Hi everyone, I'm part of the expert services team at Testgrid. We've got a range of different assessments and I'm the assessment lead.
Great. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. First of all, please feel free to ask any questions as we go through the webinar, and we can address those at the end. We can make the slides available at the end of the webinar too. You can email those out to you, but we do have an ebook going out tomorrow which has the information within the slides, any data that you see. But yeah, please request the slides if you would like those in specifically. So just crack on to the next slide. Okay, so for those that aren't familiar with Testgrid, it's a very quick introduction. Testgrid, we are an assessment and HR technology company. We were founded in 1999. So we specialise in psychometric assessments and ultimately allow our customers to make smarter and faster and fairer talent acquisition and development decisions. So our financial year 2020, our assessments were conducted over 1 million times, and also just on average, our customers were with us for about 8.2 years. So just a bit of information about Testgrid there and some kind of blatant promotion as well. So as we move into just the outline of the webinar in the next slide. Okay, so today we're going to be myself talking through essentially what graduates are looking for, and then I'm going to hand over to Josie, where she'll be talking about the recruitment challenges that we've been seeing, so from our customer feedback and also from the research that we've conducted, and also recruitment trends, again from feedback from primary research and secondary research. So without further ado, we'll just crack on to the first stage. Okay, so for the research we've conducted so far, what we've seen is really the searches for graduate programs and really the interest based on this data for graduate programs is down, and it's down year on year. We're looking at since back at 2019, and we've seen a year on year decline in the number of searches for graduate programs. There's a number of reasons for that, which we'll go into later in the presentations. We talk about the trends and challenges. One of those being that a lot more graduates are going to entry-level roles, but as we're all aware, it's becoming increasingly challenging to capture graduates, and that challenges is emphasised with the volume of interest going down. But we are seeing just a little spike there. Just we're going to look at October 2021, where we are now. It's actually a bit of an increase, but yeah, still that kind of year-on-year curve that is flattening. If we just move on to the next slide. Okay, just looking at what graduates are actually searching for. So we can see that the business management and engineering mathematics are still very much high in demand, but we have seen a decline of 2% in the last year. So it's the 2020 to 2021 data, looking from January to June. And then IT and computer sciences and sciences in general, seen a bit of an increase with 3% of IT and computer science, and then a 1% increase in the sciences. So we've seen, although we've seen a bit of a decline, we can in the graduates searches and searches for graduate programs, we can see that where that decline is essentially. And what has been searched for. If we just move on to the next slide, please. And of course, we can't do a webinar talking about recruitment without mentioning that the current situation that we're in with the pandemic. Things looking a lot more hopeful in Australia as states moving out of lockdown. But what we are seeing is that shift in what graduates are looking for and from employers, and that the 85% of them are looking for flexible or hybrid working model. This is something we're seeing from mature employees as well, looking for that hybrid model, given the fact that obviously what we've gone through for the last couple of years. So that is something to look out for, and we'll touch on that later on in the presentation as well, and some processes around recruiting remotely. We just move on to the next slide. All righty, so that's enough from me. I'll now hand over to Josie, who will talk through the recruitment challenges and the recruitment trends.
Thank you, Dave. So yeah, I'm going to talk you through some of the challenges that we've seen in the organisations that we work through, and then also some of the trends and strategies that they're using to overcome these challenges. If I can work out how to use Zoom, that would also be great. Next. There we go. So one of the really key challenges at the moment that's going on is that recruiters are spread too thin. So in Australia, recruiters actually went from an average of 17 open roles per month to an average of 21. So that's almost a 25% increase in workload that recruiters are having to fill. And then to make things even more difficult, offer acceptance rates are falling. So this is when you get to the end of the recruitment process and give someone a final offer. They're actually currently sitting at 95% in comparison to 97% in 2019. That might not sound like a large decline with 2%, but if you consider the amount of effort, time, and money that goes into that recruitment process only to have the offer rejected at the last moment, that's a really large impact for recruitment at the moment. And then the last dot point there showing that research shows that 63% of grad job seekers would actually reject a job offer after receiving a bad candidate experience. So that is a huge statistic suggesting that that recruitment experience really has important ramifications for whether grads are actually going to accept the offer at the end. So recruiters are really being encouraged to still provide that high touch candidate experience, but with quite minimal resources that they've had previously. So that's a really key challenge. So as we know, COVID has impacted mental health. That is not a surprise to anyone anymore. But this is particularly prevalent for the graduate age bracket. So some research into wellbeing has showed that grad age bracket from 18 to 24 years of age was the proportion of the population that was the most impacted psychologically by the pandemic. So there was a 21% decrease in psychological well-being for that age bracket in comparison of pre and post lockdowns last year. And that has continued to be impactful into this year as well. So something that came up repeatedly with some of the organisations that we work with was a decrease in scores of cognitive ability in grad programs. So this was quite interesting to Testgrid's experts team because we had a lot of companies coming to us saying, why are our grads performing more poorly this year? And we didn't want to make any assumptions about this. So we decided to do a bit of research into it and actually compared the graduate cognitive ability scores from 2020, so early 2020, prior to the impacts of COVID, and then with the 2021 results. And we actually found a significant decrease in the cognitive ability scores. And so Trio Essentials was the assessment that we measured, which is a combination of verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning. And we found that there was a reduction in test scores by 4.1%. So that led to an effect size of 0.28. So that's a small impact of a COVID timeframe on these grads' cognitive ability, but it's still a significant statistic there. So if that statistic was a 1, then that would be a perfect prediction of COVID on cognitive ability, but it's 0.28. So it's not huge, but it still is something that's important to consider, is that there's still a bit of lingering brain fog going on. And so it's long been known that mental health conditions can impact people's cognitive ability. So if you consider depression and anxiety, these are things that really hinder individuals' ability to think at their best and to have the same brain capacity that they normally have. When we're experiencing anxiety, our body goes into a state of fight or flight, where your body is trying to prime itself for survival, to stay alive. And so we're not able to think as intelligently in these situations because it's not about, it hinders creativity and lateral thinking. And so that's likely why we're seeing this reduction here. And so it's really important to be mindful of, especially with such a war for talent going on at the moment when it comes to hiring. Another key challenge at the moment is the impacts on dealing with people. So everyone's working from home, or a lot of people are working from home, and particularly grads being onboarded working from home is really impactful for their development. So that 40% stat there at the top, we can see is some research from the Wellbeing Lab with Michelle McQuaid, and found that 40% of Australian workers found that dealing with people is now their biggest challenge in the workplace. So previously, these were other things like conflict, pay, all of these other areas of work. And now it's really dealing with people has become the most difficult thing for 40% of Australian workers. So grads normally have that opportunity to develop soft skills in the office through those micro interactions that we experience. And so grads are really struggling now as they become hired into new organisations to develop those soft skills. And I don't love the term soft skills because they are really important skills and they shouldn't be considered soft, as we know. But these are really key things that grads are at that prime age for developing. And they're maybe stunted a little bit in that growth period. They may struggle to develop emotional intelligence skills, communication skills, and the confidence that is required to develop those skills is somewhat limited from the home office because you're on your own and you haven't got the people around you to give you those micro positive interactions that are really important for development of those skills. So that's a really key thing to remember as well when we are hiring at the moment. And now we have also a trend of Reneges increasing. So we noticed that there's a couple of challenges in regards to the grads that are available at the moment, such as mental health, cognitive ability challenges, and also soft skill challenges. And then this also extends to some skills shortages. So there's a lot of talk about the competition for top talent at the moment. This is somewhat due to COVID and those skills shortages, but also due to the lack of migrant workers that we would normally have in Australia and the lack of international students that we attract. So that's particularly in that grad market, those international students not being here due to COVID. And so that's leading to some skills shortages in Australia, particularly in the IT space. And so what this means is that candidates who have the top skills have a lot more options available. That's why we hear a lot of talk of the Great Resignation, because people are wanting what's available to them, and they have high expectations of organisations, and so they have more opportunities if they have those skills because they're in high demand. And then that's why reneges are increasing, because people are going back on that initial offer acceptance because they're being given a better offer somewhere else. And so really one of the ways to manage this and to be able to help Australia with that post-COVID recovery is to give opportunities for development. If we have skills shortages in Australia, it's important that we provide graduates with the opportunities to develop these skills and to learn these skills. And the thing is, with Gen Z, they're quite tech savvy, and it wouldn't actually take them that long to perhaps learn some of these IT skills that we don't have available currently. So it's really important that these things are being offered and that organisations are giving grads those development opportunities. So those are some of the challenges that we have experienced. And now I'm going to talk a bit about some of the organisational trends and strategies that recruitment teams are using. So Gen Z is going to make up about 70% of the working population by 2030. So whether we like it or not, Gen Z is going to be a really large component of the future workforce and eventually take over. And so it's really important that we understand Gen Z and understand what attracts them to roles and how we can best help them to meet their development needs and their value needs. So meeting them on their own terms is really necessary to successfully attract Gen Z and then also retain key staff to your business. So some interesting things about Gen Z is that they really value meaningful work. So they've grown up in this they've grown up in a space where getting a job was always hard, and there was the recession, and there were times when it was very difficult to even find a part-time job while they were at school or university. And now there's a lot more opportunities out there. So they're not afraid to ask for what they want, and they will pick and choose organisations and grad programs based on what is valuable to them. And so something that is key to the Gen Z demographic is meaningful work and also diversity. So what we can do here is encourage your organisation to identify what kind of corporate social responsibility initiatives are going on, what kind of diversity initiatives are going on, and be vocal about that, because Gen Z has that kind of they want to help people. They want to be responsible environmentally and things like that. And so that's why it's important to be vocal about those things to attract Gen Z. So 77% did say that levels of diversity affect their decision to work at an organisation. So it's really important that we're mindful of diversity and that we're creating diverse workforces. And psychometric testing can be a really important way to do that, which I'll talk a bit about on the next slide. Work-life balance. So the 9 to 5 isn't something that they want. And this has come out of a recent survey as well of Gen Zs. 91% said that tech sophistication would impact their interest in working at an organisation. So this generation has grown up with technology, and so if they're using a technology that's older than they are, that's likely to be highly demotivating for Gen Z. So they may reject job offers if they are required to use old technology. They do expect an offer within 2 weeks of their first interview. So it's important that recruiters are using the right technologies to be able to get those offers out quickly. And they also expect that simple, high touch and modern recruitment process. So, integrating the right technologies into your recruitment process to be able to attract and retain Gen Z.
Just on that point, Josie. I guess that's really important, that candidate experience, because tech sophistication is such an important component of what they're looking for. I guess if that initial touch point in the recruitment process isn't reflective of that, it would reflect poorly on the brand. So yeah, really important, and that's up to speed. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially as we saw that stat of 60-something% of grads rejecting an offer if they had a bad candidate experience. That's really, really huge. So these are some of the key technologies you can use to provide that high touch candidate experience, because obviously we saw that recruiters were spread too thin. So how do we manage that when Gen Z wants all of these things, but we have low resources in our recruitment teams? So what we can do is use some of these technologies to help to provide that high touch experience with low recruitment resources. So using an ATS, that's very simple, but it can integrate all of your recruitment data into the one place and simplify things for you. Video interviewing. So video interviewing is one of the main ways that you can reduce the time it takes to assess your candidates, and it actually has shown an 80% decrease in time to hire. So that's very useful. So you're able to have candidates pre-record their responses to interview questions and then rate them, which is really time saving, and as opposed to individually interviewing people, which you can do a bit later on in the process. Showcasing marketing content that specifically appeals to particular candidate pools. So like I mentioned before, making sure that your marketing content is in alignment with those values that are important to Gen Z. And just on the video interviewing as well, it's actually shown to have a 40% increase in candidate experience. So that's a really great way to show that your organisation uses the most up-to-date technologies to be able to be lingual for the Gen Z. And then lastly, there we've got giving high-quality applicants opportunity to showcase their potential through psych testing. So sometimes people may assume that psych testing will deter candidates from applying. But if we're actually striving for diversity and high quality applicants with those desirable skills, research demonstrates that candidates actually want to showcase their abilities through psych testing. And many individuals with disabilities actually do welcome the opportunity to demonstrate their skills using an objective, unbiased medium, because that's something that's really important about psych testing, is that it is objective, it's unbiased. These people who feel as though they've been judged for their diverse attributes in so many aspects of life have the ability to finally demonstrate their skills in a standardized way that literally just says, give me a task and I'll do it, and I'm able to demonstrate that I can do this as well as other people. So it is a really important thing to use. And then you can just see our suggestion of a recruitment process. This may vary on depending on your organisation and what is suitable, but this is a kind of standard recruitment process that a lot of organisations we work with use. And these are some of the other trends and strategies that organisations are using. So organisations are recruiting grads twice per year. So there's a few changes to the traditional timelines of grad recruitment. We're finding sometimes people are going to market in that April, May space, and then also again in September, October around now. And that's just kind of exposing them more to the market and allowing them to get more exposure to the top skills that are out there. They're also investing in the grads' demand for development opportunities. So providing opportunities to develop the skills that are lacking, whether that be IT skills or communication and emotional intelligence skills. Those things, because they're limited in development from the working from home setup, might need some additional support to develop those things. We also found that assessment centres are being delivered remotely due to those travel restrictions. So some companies are doing it all via Zoom, and then also general increased uptake of video interviews and psych testing, because you can do these things remotely and they always have been done remotely, and you're not able to bring people into the office for interviews at the moment. Giving grads the opportunity to work in cross-functional teams and be exposed to different departments, giving them the opportunity to develop in those areas. So that's something that doesn't cost extra money for the organisation to provide. And then some companies are actually offering a staying bonus to grads who remain with the organisation, perhaps to increase retention if they're staying for longer than a year or so. Another thing to do is to just consider, why do candidates want to work for us? What can we provide them with that's going to align with their values? And how are we able to show that? So that could be a big draw card for applicants who want to advance in their careers, and things like that. And here is a bit of data that's from this year, about a recent government department graduate program who's utilised our recruitment process, and it's still ensured a really streamlined candidate experience using our program. So we can see here that they have still had completion rates that are really high here, 97, 95% throughout both stages. And so that's really good to see some evidence here of a bit of a case study of a government department that we've worked with who's used these strategies effectively, and it's had really excellent results. Okay, so that brings us to the questions section, keeping it short, sharp and shiny for you all because it's getting towards lunch. Is there any questions? Or Dave, did you have any questions as well?
Yeah, I've got a couple come through there, Josie, and I'm just going to answer the one, and I can answer one too. Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for that, Josie. That was really insightful. Lots of great research in there, and trends. I see that. So one of the questions we've got is that I'll address first of all is what percentage of Gen Z are going to make up the working population by 2030. So we just recently done some research on that, and Gen Z is going to make a third of the workforce by 2030. Another question I've got, Josie, is that someone's asking the processes that you mentioned, in terms of time to implement those, what kind of timings are you looking for? Are we looking at there?
Okay, so it really does depend on how many of the different strategies you use in the process. At Testgrid, we can set up psychometric testing for you in 1 to 2 days. So that can be something that's done really quickly, as well as video interviews. Working with us to set those up is very quick as well. If we're looking at a complete recruitment process overhaul, if we're meeting with you, consulting with the process, that can be anywhere from 2 weeks to a month if you're going through all of the different processes. So it really just depends on how much content you already have available and how much work there is to do around it. But psych testing, all of our testing is online already and ready to go. We have an excellent support team that's Australian based, 24 hours a day, and they can set you up really quickly.
Great. This is pretty straightforward then.
It's pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, I've got some other questions come through as well. We're kind of trying to keep this, we're going to run out of time. One question is, does this apply to TAFE students as well, for when they finish a certification, a Cert 4 or diploma? What's your thoughts on that? I guess that's framed under the Gen Z information. So I guess a lot of what's said applies to that.
Yeah, and we do find a lot of them are looking for, as we notice those trends of people's searches for grad programs going down, we have noticed that less people are seeking out the formal grad program in general. And that's because they may not be meeting the needs, and a lot of people are taking those TAFE pathways. And so in those areas, people are tending to take more just going straight into jobs rather than a full graduate program. And so it depends where the values are being met and where they're feeling their needs are met. So yeah, it does depend.
Nice. I'll just address one more question, and we can address the rest as I'll just email. So I've got someone asking about. Sorry, I'm just going to come back to the question. I've got quite a few questions coming in.
Yeah.
Just on one about how early are companies making offers to secure grads. I mean, based on, I'll just take this one, just the research that we've done showed the graduates are looking for, just the point in the presentation that graduates are looking for that offer within 2 weeks, really. So yeah. I guess it's really on the organisation to accommodate that as much as possible, given that the information we shared at the start of the presentation, lower volume of searches for those grad programmes, and also shortages of and it being more competitive. So yeah, it's really that 2 weeks is really the kind of sweet spot there.
Yeah.
And okay, and then just I've got one more question, and then I'll just have to answer the rest of them.
That's fine.
Via email. And yeah, just in terms of, we've got someone asking, has there been less graduates overall due to COVID, like students deferring due to not wanting to learn remotely? I guess initially we can say that, I mean, I will follow up with this one because this is quite an interesting question, and I only really included in the Google Trends data in the first slide, the last few years, and COVID's been such an anomaly essentially from a data perspective. But I guess we could surmise that's had quite a bit of an impact there. But yeah, there was that decline. There was that decline of people who came straight into the workforce. So yeah,
a decline in applications and a decline in searches. It's hard to know exactly why, if it's due to not wanting to learn remotely, but we could definitely surmise that is correct and that is the reason why. But there is a range of contributing factors. We can't put people into boxes all of the time, and we can't always know exactly why people are doing things, as much as I would love to be able to do that. But yeah, I think that definitely is one of the contributing factors, that learning remotely is just very difficult. And we can put strategies in place to manage it, as we've discussed, but it is still a challenge.
Great. Just going to finish there. I've got another couple of questions coming in. I do apologise that we're not able to answer those. What we will do is follow up with you. We've got one just on timing, just around people going to market and how long it takes the recruitment process to set up. And what we'll do is we'll take that offline, and I'll address all these. We've got an EDM going out tomorrow, which has got that ebook in there that's got all the information that's in the slides. So Leslie on the chat, the information will be in there, and we'll also share the slides with you directly. So yes, this ebook will be going out tomorrow, and for all the questions that we've not managed to answer, we'll certainly be getting in touch with you guys. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope it's been really helpful. If you'd like to inquire, we've got our contact information there. Just get in touch, give us a call, or
I think we might have lost Dave a little bit there.
Yeah, can you hear me, Josie?
All right, well, it seems presenting to you all today. So thank you very much for your time, and take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.